Our writing prompt is from the Saint Hallow. The king has a large problem. The hero that was summoned thinks slavery is a bad thing and women should have rights. Our first response is from Thanatophobia. Alex couldn't believe his luck. Within a month he went from having a dead-end job and no friends to being the hero of another world. Within a month he became a powerful hero and gained powers at an astonishing rate, just because he was from a different world. The court sage could barely teach him anything about magic anymore, and when practicing his combat skills, he'd defeat a dozen of the king's elite knights and barely break a sweat. And then there was Anna, of course, the personal attendant the king assigned to him. It was awkward at first, because he felt uncomfortable about having a servant attend to his every need. But her gentle nature and sweet voice soon got him accustomed to being awoken by her and served breakfast in bed. In the evening, she would help him bathe and massaged his shoulders. It wasn't long before he dared to make the move and kissed her. After that, she slept with him in the bed and they would have breakfast together. After another long day of gaining some real combat experience subjugating an orc tribe and having a bath to clean off all the blood and grime, he sat on the bed and Alice crawled onto the bed behind him, her hands on his shoulders. "Long day, my brave hero," she whispered into his ear. Alex put his hand on her hand. "Not today, Anna, I'm tired and..." He could feel her jerk her hands away, and when he looked over his shoulder, he saw her terror-stricken face. Anna was shaking. Did I displease you, Master Alex?" She prostrated herself on the bed. Please don't send me away. I'll do better, I'll do anything to please you." Her sudden fear shocked Alex and he gently held her hand. "Whoa, I'm not sending you away, Anna. What is all this? Why are you so scared?" Anna raised her head, tears streaming down her face. Normally, when a master has no more need of a slave, she is sent away to the mines or the brothels." Alex felt the blood drain from his face. "Wait, slave? No, you are a maid, aren't you?" Anna nodded. "Yes, the royal court bought me to be a maid and attend to any wishes my master, like you, has." Alex felt like someone just poured ice water down his spine. "So, you slept with me because you don't have a choice?" Anna nodded. "Yes, of course, even if I wasn't a slave, it's a woman's place to serve her man in any way he wishes." Alex felt sick to his stomach and got up from the bed, realizing just how little he knew of this other world. He stood by the open door to the balcony, his hand on the doorframe to steady himself. Anna cautiously approached him. "Are you okay, Alex?" He turned around and held her hands. "I'm so sorry about what I did to you, Anna." He saw the puzzled look on Anna's face. "Look, Anna, where I'm from slavery is illegal and men who make women sleep with them against their will are considered disgusting scumbags." He sat down at the table with her. "Please, tell me all about your society." "Something I should have asked a month ago, but I was too distracted with the amazing treatment I got." Anna spent the rest of the night telling Alex exactly how society in this world worked. About the slavery system fed by wars waged between kingdoms, how slaves had no rights and often died from abuse, malnourishment, or exhaustion, how even ordinary citizens lived and died at the whims of nobles. In the morning, Anna awoke to see Alex donning the legendary hero's armor. The armor that, according to the legends, the great hero would wear when going off to defeat the great evil that plagued the lands. "Sir Alex? What are you doing?" He stood with his back to her, tightening some of the straps. "Before I arrived in your world, the goddess blessed me with my powers and tasked me to defeat the evil in her precious world." He walked to the door, unsheathing his sword, said to be forged in the heat of a volcano, from the blood of a dragon. As he opened the door to walk out of the room, he looked back at Anna. "But until last night, I guess I didn't realize exactly what evil she was talking about." Our next response is from Lise writes. The crowd outside the castle was roaring louder than anything King Aloysius, third of his name, ruler of the mighty land, appointed by the divine nature, had ever heard. The racket scrapped his ears. Shouts, cheers, and yelps drowned out the birds on what should have been a pleasant spring morning. Aloysius licked his lips and scratched his beard. He paced around his quarters and reached the window once more. Though his advisor had warned him against it, he couldn't resist taking a glance out the window, down to the city below. The walls of the citadel kept them at bay, but the peasants gathered around the walls of the had started to gain mass. Under the bright, blue sky, the city slouched, roofs caved in, walls of buildings were held up with extra planks, and the north end of town had still not been repaired after the fire last summer. Instead of its usual, muted quality, the city felt alive. People crowded the roads in all directions and the crowd came to a head at the castle's gate, which was drawn shut. With divine blessing, it would hold shut. All this for one man? Aloysius asked his advisor. Elias nodded gravely. I'm afraid so, Your Majesty. Aloysius swore. And his party? Locked in the dungeons, all in separate cells, Elias confirmed. It was a small comfort, but at least they couldn't be as much of a problem for now. Aloysius took another lap around his quarters and rubbed his forehead, which seemed to have taken on a thin sheen of sweat despite the fact the weather was mild. It was absurd, truly. None of it made sense. It had started last summer, after the dragon's fire swept through the town. The flames scorched a little too close to the castle's keep for his liking, so he'd offered a handsome sum for anyone who could put a stop to the beast's destruction. It was hardly his fault the petulant peasant boy took it upon himself to make a fool of his king. Sometimes, in his nightmares, Aloysius relived the moment. How he was standing there, on the parapet, frozen with thick fear that the breath he was drawing in would be his last. The dragon's wings whipped clouds and stirred dust. And then, on the back that boy. It was true, he hadn't specified how he wanted the dragon's attacks to stop. Truthfully, he couldn't have cared less if the dragon was slain or driven out. But to befriend the dragon? It was making a mockery of Aloysius' rule. After a season of chaos, Aloysius finally gave in to his former advisor's advice and paid the sum. Which only spurred that boy's awful arrogance. Hence the former advisor, too. In the months since, the boy had only raised his profile. He used his reward to free slaves. He befriended monsters. His party was made of women, freedmen, and monsters alike. Aloysius sucked his teeth. It never should have come to this. He should have killed the boy himself. Now, it was too late. Elias warned against the chaos it would cause now if he pulled the boy to the chopping block, and Aloysius had to admit he was right. The peasants would literally push down the gates. Your Majesty. Elias stepped forward. Perhaps you should eat. With time, this whole thing will blow away. Let them rot in the dungeons. The townsfolk will lose interest before the summer's solstice. Aloysius frowned. The fire crackled in the hearth. A meal does sound nice, he admitted. Elias nodded and called to the nearest servant to go to the kitchens. Aloysius collapsed into his chair with a sigh. The life of a king was exhausting. Head of the realm, he was. And yet these ungrateful peasants couldn't see how he was holding everything together. What would they ask for next? Workers' rights? Voting on their leader? Absurd. Absolutely absurd. Next up, from domestic_Adonis. King Aravar had never been so stressed as he listened to the reports from his advisors. His 4 massage slaves were set to task. The kitchen slaves had sent up his favorite dishes, but he had no appetite. The wives attempted to maintain their composure, but they were clearly also concerned by the reports. One advisor read from a parchment, a millet field. A tin mine. A fishing village. A merchant ship. A windmill. There appears to be no pattern to the dragon attacks. An admiral chimed in, we marched the slave armies to death. We can't keep up with the dragon. Our archers cannot penetrate his scales. Our ballista deter the dragon, but there are not enough to be everywhere. If we had more. The coin eunuch interjected, out of the question. The treasury has never experienced strains like these for centuries. Instability leads to slave revolts. These slow production, slow our armies, and drain our resources. Whispers among the nobles about leadership. At this, King Erevar sat upright. They dare. My dynasty has made them prosperous for centuries. Dragons are a Western problem. I could never have foreseen one coming to the east. The sentries tapped their spears on the floor. A stranger had entered the audience chamber. The steward announced, "Will, the dragon slayer, requests an audience with the king." The king sighed, "Finally, the dragon slayer I sent for. Welcome, Will. I know you have spent long weeks on the road. Refreshments for our guest. Be welcome, dragon slayer." Several slaves appeared with trays of food and wine. The dragon slayer waved them off. Will spoke up, "Your grace honors me. I have slayed 6 dragons in the west. I will rid your kingdom of this bane, for a price." The advisors exchanged nervous looks. The coin eunuch replied, "Dragon slayer, our resources have been diminished, but we can offer 10,000 gold coins." The room went quiet. Will responded, "I have sufficient coin to last me and my heirs many lifetimes over. Your offer is more than generous, but I don't need money." King Erevar addressed the dragon slayer directly, "What boon would you seek?" "An end to slavery in your kingdom and equality for women in your kingdom." All the slaves froze in place. The wives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The king retorted, "This is the East. No one dies of hunger here. No one sleeps in the streets. Our armies and navies have turned away all incursions for centuries. Slavery is key to this. Marriages ensure stability. You should have met my first 3 wives. Paid too many cows for them." Will smiled and said, "Very well. I'll return to the west and leave you to your dragon." The advisors and admirals whispered amongst themselves. The king shouted, "Wait! Dragon slayer! We will consider your offer." The audience chamber erupted into chatter. Many nervous looks were exchanged. Some nobles quickly left. A messenger slave burst into the audience chamber. He collected his breath and said, "It's here. The dragon, my king, has come to the capital." Chaos erupted in the room. Women wept. More nobles left. The king raised a hand and the chamber went silent. The king sighed, "Save my kingdom. Save my people. We will meet your terms, if you are successful." Will nodded, left the palace, and got to work. Our final story is from Spiritual Lie 2563. "I'm not fighting for your country." I glared at the king. How could I, in good faith, fight for this country when they offered me a group of concubines, women who likely didn't want to be in this position, people who are enslaved? There is nothing good about these things. Even saying they exist inherently makes me a monster for merely admitting they have ever existed. If this place is this far behind my world, they're evil. But, you must save us. They will destroy us. I glared. If you don't do anything, I will destroy you. I've never met the demon lord, but I know this demon lord is Jesus Christ compared to you monsters. The king pointed towards me. You are one of them? Then show your heroism, hero. Take your sword and kill me, if you believe me to be the demon. I readied myself and my sword. Here's a blow for equality if there ever was one. I grabbed the sword and drove it straight into the king's chest. I saw the black goo his cold, evil heart pumped instead of blood come out, the blue blood his autocrat veins pumped. The pumps coming from him. The sparks coming around my sword as it, wait, what? I saw the king fall, sparks still flying around him. His robe fell, showing that his breastplate was not being worn, it was connected to some flesh-colored metal. The eyes that were glaring at me blinked out. As I saw this, a person stepped out from behind the curtain. I was in shock. Wait, the king was a robot? The person headed to me and slapped me. An android, check your privilege, human. You think that you're the first person from your world who has come here as a hero? I was more in shock. This world seemed like a medieval fantasy world like in any JRPG the reader would have played and accepted in order to not have to deal with world building, and now there's androids in it? Did I end up in a Square Enix game? The person glared at me. Let me make this clear, hero. I understand the social viewpoints of your world very well. You're not the first and you won't be the last one from your world who comes here, and every time someone does they demand changes to how our kingdom handles things in exchange. First, it was the hero who told us how evil slavery was and how chattel slavery was monstrous, and we agreed with them. Then, it was the hero who told us all slavery, even as punishment, was inherently evil, and we worked on that to save the nation from needing slaves entirely. It was worth it for his heroism. I nodded. Well, then you learned, right? The person glared. That was the start. The next person claimed all work, even for pay, was inherently unequal and thus slavery, and made us go to a world where everyone had equal shares of the production we got, and that was a grand moment when we had freedom from that hero. Then, the next hero claimed that fighting the demon lord was inherently the same as inequality and we had to intermarry one of our princesses with them, and it gave problems there since it didn't work and now we had to let the demon lord take over. It took a whole hero just to fix things there. Then, the next hero claimed that any work, whatsoever, was inherently slavery and everyone should be allowed to do as they wish, and we let that hero have its way until a hero said we were putting too much stress on the people who chose to farm or have their own craft. We did as this hero said, and had the demon lord's minions or beast men do all the work, which the next hero told us was also a bad thing. We probably should have seen that coming long before this, but we fixed it. So now, here's where our kingdom stands. All our living beings sit in a beautiful field all day and dance, with robots feeding them grapes as they do. All our farmers, our craftsmen, our rulers, all AI-generated robots who were created to do this work. Even I, the person in charge of keeping the king's robot working, am a robot myself, built to maintain the other robots. What more do you people want from us? I took a step back. Well, you don't think you went a bit too far in the other direction? The robot looked towards me and pressed a button as a hero's voice came out, saying, "Oh, I don't care if it's unreasonable, you give an inch to evil, it takes a mile," before turning to its original voice and saying, "That's a tape of what the last hero said when they told us that having our convicted criminals pay off the sentence by working to maintain the robots was as evil as the demon lord." They put that voice inside all of us maintenance robots to tell our mind why we're supposed to maintain other robots. So tell us, what new thing do we need to do to be truly good people, oh great hero? I mumbled, "Do you follow the Asimov rules?" As the robot said, the hero after they invented robots said those rules were barbaric because we'd have to put a human's life over our own. Try something else to be the hero, hero. Well, at least now I have something to think about as I go.
That's all for today, folks. If you enjoyed, hit that thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe for more wild Reddit stories. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and have an amazing day.